We'd like to welcome all of you. My name is Rachel Bro, and I'm the manager of member services at CELA. And I had the pleasure this spring to organize the onboarding process for all Manitoba public libraries. As part of the onboarding process, one of our speakers actually had the suggestion to hold an online chat, a very informal space for you as new Manitoba libraries coming on to CELA to ask those with more experience with CELA your questions and learn how to get the service started. So I'm delighted to have Jen Kendall, who is the director of Portage Prairie Public Library, join us, Regional Library. Carolyn Miner, who's the section head at Special Services at Winnepeg Public Library, and Paula Harrison, Special Services Librarian and Home Service Coordinator at Winnepeg Public Library, come and speak with all of you, answer your questions, and tell you how they've been offering CELA and incorporating CELA into their existing accessible services. So today, what we'll do is I will begin by giving you a very brief overview of CELA service, and then we will jump in and have Jen, Carolyn, and Paula describe very quickly about what service is like at their libraries. And then we've come up with a series of questions. So I will ask the question and then the speakers will answer, but by all means, please feel free to jump in, ask your own questions, feel free to answer the questions if you have answers to the questions already, just so we can get a chat going. Again, really the word of the day here is being informal. We want you to benefit from everyone's experience. So I will give you the brief overview to start, because I know we're all keen to hear the speakers. So again, we were delighted in early 2022 to begin to offer and onboard public libraries. The province of Manitoba made the decision to offer CELA service to all Manitobans with a print disability through public libraries. So we got the service started by giving you training, sending lots of emails about different aspects of our system, and also sending you your account information as well. So with your account, you can register patrons in your community, and we also send promotional materials to you, so that in the hope that you will promote CELA as well, so that you'll get more people coming into your libraries to learn about your accessible services and hopefully register for CELA as well. With your account, you can provide books and magazines in accessible formats to your patrons, and you can also support your reading programs. So for example, if you run a book club, you could order a DAISY CD version of the book that you're reading so that your patrons with disabilities can participate. And we feel this is especially important for children's and teens reading programs. If you offer accessible formats, then kids can equally participate in those reading programs. So a good example of that is the TD Summer Reading Club. CELA also offers lots of training sessions. So like we're doing today, we offer training pretty well, all throughout the year and almost monthly sometimes. It depends what we're doing. So we offer our general training about every 2 months, and then we have 1 or 2 specialized webinars a year. So some past topics have been all about Braille, kids and teen services, and we also offer a session about accessible formats, basically, and also about accessible technologies like screen reading software, that kind of thing. So as CELA member libraries, not only can you connect people to our collection and you can register people with print disabilities, but you can get usage statistics, both from how much your library is using CELA, but also the patrons and their use of CELA with their individual CELA accounts. You can view all the statistics for that. And before we move it over to the speakers, I did want to say that CELA, all of you were set up and ready to go as of around July 1st, beginning of July. And CELA got off to a great start. I'm pleased to say that we've had just over 22 patrons sign up for CELA in Manitoba. We've had 2 libraries order deposit collection CDs, and I'll explain a bit about that later on. And we've had a library tell us that they promoted CELA at a seniors wellness fair in their community. So that's great. So I will pass things over to the speakers. So they're going to introduce themselves and then we'll jump into the questions. So I'll let you take it away.
We didn't talk about who was going to go first.
We didn't. I'll go first. Hi everyone, I am Jen Kendall, the director of the Portage, the Prairie Library. We have a service area of around 2,000 square kilometers, and we have about a population of just over 20,000 people. And this year we hit 8,000 members, which is our highest since 2014. I'm pretty excited. I've been here for about a year and a half now, and I worked with CELA and NELS and print disabled patrons back in Alberta, where I worked for a regional library system. So this is kind of something I'm very passionate about. So that was one of the first things when I got to Portage. I tried to make sure that we were serving patrons with perceptual disabilities as well as we could. And I kind of found out that we joined CELA before and then never really used it. So we got rid of it and then we joined again. So I've kind of spent some time marketing and getting it established here. And then luckily Manitoba joined. So now I don't have to, just do it by myself. We have all these wonderful resources. So I'll kick it over to my compatriots.
My name is Carolyn Miner. I work on the 2nd floor at the Millennium Library of the Winnepeg Public Library System. I just want to say a really special hello to Bernice Albers, because we are cousins somehow, like second or very distant cousins. I can't remember, but I know I've seen her in all the other contexts, and I hope she remembers me. So Paula and I both work in the special services section of the Millennium Library, which is on the 2nd floor, and we have a number of accessible services is just one of the services that our area offers. So we offer public service to a wide variety of customers, including people with print disabilities. Paula can say more specifically about our accessible services. We offer access and support to CELA and for customers who want CELA and NELS. We also, try to support people with print disabilities who are using Overdrive or Libby, because the accessibility of that service has increased quite a bit, and we do have customers who use it with some success. We do have some assistive technology physically in the library. So, computers with screen reading technology and magnifiers that, those, we don't have a lot to offer, but we do have some. And we have a DAISY deposit collection here at Millennium. And I think Paula can say a little bit more about what she does specifically.
Am I taking over now?
Yes, yes.
My name's Paula Harrison, and like Carolyn said, I work with here at Special Services. I'm the a Special Services librarian and home service coordinator, and I'm also having some technical difficulties today. I don't usually use the camera because I find it super distracting, and now it's not cooperating with me, even though I've made the effort today to plug it in. So yeah, like Carolyn covered most of our services, but we do have what we used to call talking book customers. So back in the day when there was the distinction between audiobooks on cassette and then the talking books, which were they were unabridged and came from the CNIB. So we still use that terminology and refer to them as talking book customers, that we sort of look after them, and we, keep track of what they're reading, and they just basically call us up and ask us for, a new selection, and we prepare something for them. And most of the time it's daisy books, and those customers absolutely love that collection. It's different from any other audiobook collection that the library has access to, I think, because it's well, when I order the books, I make sure that it's something that sort of has like a broad range of appeal, but I also make sure if I'm ordering a series, I can get from 1 up, whereas our regular collection, once 1 is gone, it's almost impossible to ever get it back. And then, so the series are more complete, but there's also a lot of Canadian content that isn't usually available through our regular vendors for audiobooks. So our customers really, really love that collection, and we send it out, and they're really enjoying it. They're very grateful for this service. So, yeah.
Great. Okay. So we'll jump into the first question. I will read it aloud, but I'm going to post it in the chat as well for everyone to see. And as the conversation is happening, I'm going to actually allow everyone to talk so that they can just jump in and ask their questions. I would ask, though, if you have any background noise, please mute yourself on your end. So I will go ahead and ask the first question, which is, how do you let your patrons know about CELA?
I like our order. I think you should start, Jen.
I had a feeling you were going to say that, but I was going to make you say it. So we have flyers and brochures in the library. And we also have a lot of marketing tools, like we've partnered with the local school district to make sure that they're aware of the educator program so they can let their teachers know about that. We also, during reference interviews or transactions, or even during the book sale, because we do have people who come specifically for and they do still call them talking books, but they use it as kind of an umbrella term for audiobooks. So I do let them know that if they're both buying audiobooks because they're having difficulty with traditional print, that we can sign them up for CELA and get those sent directly to them instead of them having to come and wait for our book sale to happen every summer. But yeah, we also have partnered with a few local seniors organizations, and that's something we do want to expand, but just having that one-on-one connection has worked really well for us. We find that the people, we all know how well people read signs before you point to them. So I find that having the conversation is really what's been the most effective for us in letting our patrons know about CELA, so they can tell either if it's for themselves or their friends or family members that might benefit from the service.
I agree with Jen 100%. Probably the best way to start the conversation about CELA is it's just the conversations. It's usually a referral from another staff member or a friend or a family member who's sort of heard about it, or it's a regular customer who starts complaining that they're really having trouble reading traditional print, and that they're going to have to make the switch to audio. And it's just through the conversations that I think we have the most success with our CELA customers. We do get referrals from the CNIB, but I don't know how many people from those referrals actually sort of pursue it once they've been registered, or because a lot of people, when I contact them, they don't register yet. They're sort of like, no, I'm not ready yet. But the ones that are already regular customers through the library they're the ones that really seem to benefit from the service and are more open to participating in it.
I'll just add one quick thing. I do have a community advocacy group that I network with fairly regularly, and they refer customers to us on an ongoing basis. So those, I've got one group that I have regular contact with, and I will say more when we get to the next question.
So actually what I thought, so anyone's welcome to also answer the question if you want to unmute yourself and say how you promote CELA to your patrons. I'm hoping everyone got their promotional materials and have done some training so you feel comfortable talking about CELA. But thank you, Paula, for mentioning the referrals. So what, I'll just briefly describe how that works. So a staff member from CNIB or its sort of sister organization called Vision Loss Rehabilitation Canada speaks with a new client and tells them about all of their services. And as part of that conversation, they talk about CELA. So they ask the person, can you still read? And usually the person says no, in the format of print, I mean, and then they say, would you like us to connect you to your public library to learn about their accessible services in CELA? So when the person says yes and gives their consent to do so, their name comes to us and then we pass it on to the library. And then it's up to the library to call that person, get them a library card if they don't have one already, and then register them for CELA and obviously explain your local accessible services as well. So Paula was saying how some people aren't ready yet. That's a fairly common thing to happen just because sometimes they're a bit overwhelmed. First of all, they're probably worried and anxious about losing their vision to a degree that they've got to go to CNIB. And then on top of that, they get an explanation about all these wonderful services, including public library service. But when you actually call them, they might not quite remember all the details. So, so when you call them, it's a good idea to mention that you got their name from CNIB, and we do have the script as well that you're welcome to use when calling calling CNIB clients, and that just might help the whole process go along. So anyway, I will stop talking. Let's open it up, and if anyone has questions. I'm going to remind you that the point of this is that we talk to each other and ask questions, or else we're not going to learn from each other. So don't be shy, please. And if you have questions, that's fine.
Or even just tell us what your experience has been so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And if you're having trouble, though, unmuting yourself, let me know in the chat, please.
Hi, my name's Krista. I'm from Killarney, Manitoba. I had a question. I guess I know you said you were going to talk about this, but the deposit collection, we do a service where we go out to a couple of the home care facilities and deliver books every 3 weeks. Again, it's not like a bookmobile. We have specific people with specific like we look at their lending history, their specific requests, and we go directly to their suites. And one thing that came up yesterday with one of our patrons was that she's registered for CELA, but because we're a small town, somebody has to go to the post office to collect the materials. And so she prefers to go through us. And so we've been filling her requests with just our regular CD audiobooks. But I'm curious about the deposit collection, because if there was a way for us to get the CELA books, then we could get them to her, because we're not going to go collect her mail, but we are happy to deliver audiobooks to her routinely. So yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about that.
I'll answer your question briefly, and then we definitely have a plan to talk in more detail about deposit collections. So you can use your ILL account to order books from us just for her. So that's one option. Or you can have a deposit account and take some CDs from that collection over to her as well. So there's 2 ways that you can do it, that you can order books from us. And as long as she has a print disability, and it sounds like she does, if she already has a CELA membership, that's fine. It's all about choice. So either through you in the library or individually through her. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. That was helpful. So I maybe missed something in the training about using our ILL account to order through CELA. Do we just do that through Phil?
No, you were sent information, an account. What library are you from? And what?
Lakeland Regional in Killarney.
Okay, so I think for Lakeland, we set up an account for the region. So whoever the contact is in are you a contact in the region?
Yes, I am.
Okay, yeah, okay, great, good. So you should have your CELA account number and password to log in and request books. And if you don't have it,
I see what you're saying. I understand now. I was thinking that we did CELA books through Phil, but you're saying we can order directly just through you.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, okay. Jen, did you want to say something though about that?
No, it's fun because we use the same terminology, but they're two very different sources of books. So
yeah,
I can see I can see the leap that was,
Yeah. Okay. Nope. That makes more sense. Thank you.
Great. I'm going to move on to the next question. So it is, what more would you like to do to support your patrons with print disabilities? And I've posted it in the chat as well.
So for me, again, having it's still fairly new at trying to use CELA well here. I'm working on increasing the outreach that we do, working more closely with lodges and having that one-on-one kind of interaction. Our home service program just fell apart during COVID, and we're having trouble reestablishing it, getting the volunteers back in place. But another thing I want to do and to help support them is to have Victor readers or other ways that they can actually borrow the technology and see if that works for them before they commit. And I found out this morning, which was very exciting, that Amazon has finally made it so that you can share EPUBs to Kindles much more easily. So yeah, but you do still have to set up an email account and email it to your Kindle, which is a bit much if you ask me. The other way I'd like to support patrons print disabilities in my region more is it's easier for people in the city, but there are people out in the RM who are on their acreage or their farm who are just very isolated, who it's difficult to find ways to support that, to reach them, to even let them know the support is available. So that's something, if anyone has any good suggestions for that, I would love to hear them, because it's something that I keep kind of running into, and there's obviously no easy solution, but I think any effort is welcome. So it's something that I know that will be a continuing effort on my part and that of my staff to reach these people who don't come into town and can't, and don't really have the access or the technology. I don't even know the word right now. I've forgotten it. It's too early. So I'm going to stop talking.
As Jen mentioned, I would also, I wish to do more outreach. It's just, like I mentioned, because we offer so many services through this department, it's really just a matter of time. But I'm sure there are many groups. The groups I particularly wish, we have really good connections with elderly people who have vision loss. It's younger people and people with learning disabilities that I think could really benefit from access to CELA and maybe don't know it. There's a gap that happens when they leave the school system, and if they don't have a library card or aren't familiar with the library, they do lose access to content. And so I think we're losing that generation. And especially if they have income, they probably are a good income. They're probably paying for access to things that they don't need. And if they don't have a good income, they're falling through the cracks. So And I forgot to mention, we are very lucky. We got some funding about 7 or 8 years ago to loan Daisy readers to our customers. So that's been a really big success for us.
Nice. Yeah, we got someone donated technology, but they donated Kindles and not tablets. So I'm very grateful, but it's been more of a learning experience for my staff than useful to my patrons. So we'll just leave it at that.
Hi, it's me again. I I have a question for Carolyn about lending the Daisy readers. So that was something we've been talking about, seeking funding so that we can buy some and have them to lend. How do you manage that when it's, in theory, it's going to be a long-term lend?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And at what point do you say, okay, now you have to drop your own $700?
Yes. Well, I'd be happy if you want to and I can email you our lending policy, which is not that complicated. It's a three-month loan. We make them return it physically. We don't allow them to extend the loan, partly because we need to maintain them. And there are people who just place requests over and over and over again. And then sometimes in between, they have to wait because other people are using them. But
right.
And when we talk about it, we say, this isn't intended to be to allow you to trial it, to see if you want to buy it yourself. We recognize that there are people who are never going to buy it. And that's just, we just keep saying it and hope that eventually their family will fork out the money for them.
That's kind of how I thought it would go. So that's good. But yes, I would love your policy. So I'll get in touch.
Sure.
Carolyn, I don't know if you're comfortable, you could put your email in the chat if you want to give it to everybody.
Yeah, of course.
I was just going to say that because I do deal a lot with these players and the people who are going to try them for the first time, I do make it very, very clear that it's not theirs to keep, because sometimes people get a little possessive, that it is just a 12-week loan. And the idea is a try before you buy. There are lots of people who will never buy, but the ones who are, maybe a little younger, or by younger, I mean 75, if they really like it, they will usually purchase their own. The ones that are, late 90s, they're probably not going to invest in one, but they will just keep, like Carolyn said, placing requests, and they may have to go some time without one, which they're always disappointed when that happens. But sometimes I'll even say to the family members, maybe instead of everyone buying grandma, soaps and Afghans, they all contribute to a Daisy player for Christmas or for a birthday, and that has happened a number of times, and they've really appreciated that gift, probably more than any of the lotions and stuff that they would normally have gotten. So.
Definitely. Actually, just yesterday, I just did a Google search for used Daisy players, and I was surprised how many are on eBay. So that would be an option. And then there was one or two on Kijiji too, at fractionally, I think at a fraction of the cost, basically, of what you would pay for a new one. So that would be another place maybe to suggest that somebody could check and try and see if they get a player. What we usually do if somebody comes to us and asks about a player is we ask if they're a CNIB client, and if they are, sometimes CNIB offices or vision loss rehabilitation offices can get the person a donated player, or just sort of have connections to try and get one. That's not always the case, but it's definitely worth asking at the local CNIB. Yeah, great. Okay, I will move on to the next one. So this one is about staff. So what do you tell new staff about your accessible services?
So when we're onboarding new staff, I make sure to kind of go over the accessible services that we offer with them and walk them through the trainings that are available. I require everyone to watch at least the introduction webinar on the CELA website so they know how to, they're aware of it enough to talk to patrons about it. We're still at a point where in-person registration in the library is rare. Most of our patrons register themselves, which is great, but it means the staff haven't had a lot of practice actually doing the registration process. So they come get me and then I will walk them through it so they're gaining familiarity with it. I do know that in libraries, you typically have the specialist who they're the expert on this and they're the expert on this. And that it's great. And you do need people who are experts in things, but everyone needs to know enough about it to be able to sign up a patron, because for some people, it's easy for them to come back, but for some people, this is the only time they're going to be here for the next 6 months. So if we turn them away, it's really not setting a good precedent for the service that we want to offer. So I've been really kind of making sure all of my staff have that refresher, and I bring it up at staff meetings probably quarterly still, just to remind them that it is a service we offer and that we can go over it if they feel like they've forgotten anything. Just because I don't want them to lose their knowledge just because we're still in a place where our patrons are confident in registering themselves, so we don't know how to do it here.
Yeah, the registration process is important, and it's great that customers can do it themselves, but the form is actually quite simple. It's actually easier than, creating an email account, because you don't have to do the password and the verification, because CELA does that for you. And so I've really tried to emphasize to any staff I talk to that they can help the customer with it. They're basically just scribing for the customer, because maybe the customer doesn't know can't use a computer, hasn't learned how to use the assistive technology yet. I've done registrations over the phone with customers, because I know that they're not going to be able to do it when they get off the phone. It doesn't matter if I send them the link. They need someone to type the answers for them. So, but there's no barriers in that form. Even the library card number, it's not, Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not actually, your form is not connecting with our databases to verify their library card.
Correct.
So
that's right. Yeah.
There are no barriers to access, and there's no requirement to submit any documentation. It's a self-declaration. So any staff can do that. And I think that's important. We do tell them, if you register a customer for any accessible service, please let us know, like Paula or myself, because we often follow up with more, offer of more service. But the actual getting them registered is really, anyone should be able to do that.
Sorry, Paula, I don't know if you were adding to that or if anyone has comments about the registration process.
I think Carolyn pretty much covered our part here.
Right. Great.
Paula and I agreed to take turns.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, so staff training. So we, over the years, have spent a lot of time trying to support libraries to include a description of accessible services, basically in all aspects of their library. Can be as simple as making sure when someone gets a library card that doesn't have a print disability, that there's information about accessible services in the pamphlet you hand to them, whatever it is. Jen mentioning adding CELA or accessible services to your quarterly meeting agendas is great. We've heard that tip from other libraries as well, because then it just becomes something that everyone needs to know about and that you do. So that's great. Okay, so we did talk about registration. That leads nicely into our next question, which are what are the common questions you receive during a CELA registration?
All right, so for me, and this is anywhere. This is not just a Manitoba set of questions. This is at least across the prairies is all the questions I get asked. Does it cost anything? What formats do I get the books in? How do I return the discs for the Daisy discs that they get? And are you sure it doesn't cost anything? But that's pretty much it. Most people are willing to kind of take, once they're ready to sign up, they're willing to take the leap. They just don't want, it's really the cost question, especially here. Like people are just, they feel like it's a trap, and I'm not sure why, but it's a little funny. But then with the returning the discs, if they're getting their own and not borrowing from our deposit collection, I do explain that they can return them for free, but that they can also just bring them to us and we'll return them for them if they don't, if like they can't get to the post office, or if again they don't believe me that they can just put free literature for the blind on the package, then they can just bring them and then we'll send them back for them.
I'm kind of laughing because when I do a registration, once someone has, you know, they're going to commit to CELA. I mean, and I use it in a, I don't mean to make it sound like they're committing to something, but once they've decided to register for CELA, you know, we've kind of already had a lot of discussions about the different formats and how they're going to get the books. And really the only thing that they keep asking is they need to be reassured that this is just going to be free, right? Like if that's really the only thing, because once we've, you know, established sort of, okay, you're going to be getting books in the mail, okay, and so I explain everything, how they're going to flip the disc around and return it, and just they're going to drop it in the mailbox just like they would if they were mailing a letter, and they get all that, so I don't have a lot of questions. But then it's just like they just really need to be reassured that this is free, because they really can't believe it that it's going to come in the mail and it's going to be free. So
I blame the CD companies in the late 90s. They sell you 13 for a penny, but then you were locked in for like a certain amount of years. So I'm just going to blame it on them. It just occurred to me, but I think that burnt a lot of people.
Does anyone have any other comments or replies to that question? Common questions during registration? So no one's saying the question I thought that was going to come up, which is what happens next after you register, because we get that one from libraries ourselves. So very quickly, what happens is when you submit the form, the person's account is created right away. So if they have an email address, we will send them their login information and some links about how to get started, basically. If the person selected CD service or direct to player service, then we will also issue them some starter books. There's 2 starter books and a magazine and CD as well, I think, to try. And then if the person, though, does not have an email address, they still will get their starter books on CD. And for anyone who wants Braille or is a child, we will call those people and talk them through the setup, because there's a few more questions when it comes to Braille and for kids as well, obviously. We do try and call all the new registrants who use CDs or direct to player, just to, it's kind of like a courtesy call to ask if they have questions, explain how their player works, that kind of thing. So we do that. If somebody of those signs up and all they want is online service, so basically self-selection, then they're, you know, there's no follow-up. They just can go ahead because they have the email to log in. And then, of course, the most important question we ask during our conversations is, do you want automatic selection? So that's where they choose those reading profiles, and then we set up their service, and they'll start to receive the books based on the reading choices that are selected by our system. And they go out on the schedule of the person's choice. So they can get books weekly or monthly, even bi-monthly. It's a bit complicated. There's a lot of options, but we talk about all those things. Great. Any other comments? No. Okay, I will move on to the next question, which is how do you handle remote library card registrations?
All right. So for us, there are a few different ways they handle them. I will be looking down because I do like make notes for myself because it does get a little interesting. But so we do ask if they can come in still, if that's possible. Usually we find out about remote card registrations because a caretaker, usually an adult child, has come in. And we do need, proof that they live in the service area, but we still will call the patron just to make sure that they know that someone is signing them up for a library membership and ask for their consent. And then, so we'll issue the membership. And if they just want CELA books and e-materials, we'll usually make it a digital only membership so people can't take out materials on their card, which sounds a little weird, but we've had a few incidences of library card fraud in the past few months where people will either we've had 2 stolen cards come in and people try to borrow laptops. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so we do make sure that if they if they allow like so and so to pick up their books, it can just be that one person. And like, are they allowed to check the books out on their card? There are a few questions we ask just for our own processes. The only time it's really different is if they're referred to us by CNIB, and I will make a point of saying, please check the email that CELA has for you. Because my predecessor set up a special registration email, but never told anyone. So for about 1.5 years, all of our referrals were going to an inbox that was not being monitored. So just double check, and it'll make everything a lot easier. But so if we receive the referral from CNIB, it's a little easier, and we kind of have some of the information already, and we know this person's more receptive in that they are interested in a card. We still ask if they're able to come in, but if not, we'll complete the registration over the phone. And if they're willing to go through telling us what their preferences are, what delivery schedule they want, then we will go ahead and set that up for them. But if that's something they can't decide, or if they need to think about, then we give them the contact information for CELA so that they can handle that themselves without us having to be the intermediary, because we find that a lot of the patrons are still wanting to just go directly to CELA and not use our deposit collection yet. So we want to make sure that there's no miscommunications happening when so-and-so takes a message and then this person emails CELA. And, but I think that's kind of our process at the moment.
So here at Winnepeg Public Library, not registering in person for a library card is not really something that is encouraged here. So when I do have someone who is interested in CELA or some of our accessible services, I usually start by asking if they don't already have a card, if they still get out and about, and if they're okay with going into the library to get themselves a card. A lot of times people say yes, and a lot of times I'm also speaking with usually it's a daughter, but an adult child who is sort of looking after their, usually a mom. And, so sometimes they have power of attorney, or other times I may say, does she get out and about? Yes, she does. We're always looking for an outing. This will be great. We have nothing to do on Friday and I'm off, whatever. So they sometimes make it a little bit of an outing, or part of their, if they're going out anyway, they'll pop in at a library to get themselves a card. But that's not always possible. So then if they can't get out, I will do the registration over the phone. I think for me, it's obvious when, so they're not trying to pull a fast one. So I just need to know if they live in the city or whatever. And if I'm speaking with a younger adult child, or a lot of times they'll call and I'll be on speakerphone. So the three of us will be having a conversation, or, you know, they're relaying the message. And a lot of times people will say, well, can I just send you a picture of the Manitoba health card? Sure, done. It's already in my inbox as we're speaking and we're doing the registration, it's fine. But if they're not working with a helper, you know, most of these people, they're using landlines. I can very easily just sort of check the address on Canada 411. They're not trying to scam anything. So it's, we just do the registration over the phone, and it's okay. And then I will mail out a library card, and with a letter that says, you know, this was part of, you know, you needed this card to register for CELA, keep it in a safe place. And then I also, on those cards, I always put no internet access and stuff, because I think if the card was ever lost or stolen, usually someone's going to want to use it for the internet or whatever, and then they're not going to be able to use the card anyway. So yeah.
Great. Does anyone else want to? Oh, sorry. Somebody.
I did think of something, my apologies. So typically also, if it's not a relative or close, if it's not someone who appears to have a close relationship with, if it's just someone who, especially if it's a paid person who's a caretaker for the individual, we'll try to get them to sign up for the caregiver membership that CELA offers, instead of issuing a brand new card for this person, because they can still access the materials for this person without having the extra card running around. Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else want to describe how they handle remote library card registrations? Okay, I'm actually going to move forward. Our time is a bit tight. We have 2 more questions, and the last question is the best question. So I want to leave lots and lots of time for that one. So I'm going to move on, and let's spend about 5 minutes on the next one, so we can leave a full 5 minutes for the last one as well. So the next question is, how do you describe the different reading formats and reading technology options to your patrons?
So during the registration process, or even during the initial conversation, I try to find out what the patrons are comfortable with before I start talking about all the different options, because there are so many options. I don't want them to get overwhelmed. And I do find that to be the easiest way to recommend CELA. Like, we have one of our practices in our audiobook collection is we already put Braille labels on each disc case, so people can keep them, you know, in order. But by having a book that's just one disc, it makes it a lot easier for our diehard audiobook fans. So then it makes it easier for them to slide into that, and I can recommend those. And if we don't have what they want in our deposit collection, we can go ahead and get it for them most of the time. And with, you know, if they prefer print, sometimes it's a bit of a harder sell to get them into the ebooks, but by letting them know they can still read, you know, text, but they can control the font size, is how I get them into the EPUB books. And again, which is why I discovered this very exciting Amazon technology that's taken out 4 or 5 steps and lets you have a truly gigantic font. There's like 4 words on the screen. It's hilarious. I don't know anyone would enjoy reading that way, but who knows? It's not up to me. So that's pretty much my sales technique for the format.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing. If you just look at all the options on a page and try to talk your way through them, you're losing them right away. So you basically have to ask them, what do you do right now? Do you have a CD player? Can you use the buttons on your CD player? Because if they can't, then you need to start talking about a Daisy player, and explaining that, and how are they going to get it, and it's a very long conversation, and you have to be invested in having that conversation, because there's no fast way through this, through the recommend, like eliminating the options that aren't going to work for them is basically what you're trying to do.
One suggestion that we have for libraries is opening up the conversation by asking, what technology do you have at home? And that just immediately guides you into what format and what delivery method would work best for them. But I like the tip too about the highlights of font sizing, adjusting font size. That's a great way to go to get into that.
Yeah.
Anyone else have wish to answer the question about describing different reading formats and technologies? Okay, I'll move ahead. I really hope no one's having trouble unmuting themselves, but if you are, put a note in the chat and let us know. Okay, so I got a little ahead of myself with the question, so I'm going to ask the next one. So how do you use your ILL and deposit accounts? So I've already described a little bit about how that works. Basically, ILL accounts are for temporary loans, and deposit accounts are for that collection that you can receive, like a batch of CDs every year or every 6 months. So I'm going to open it up to all of you.
So we don't. We're not at a point yet where we're using the ILL account. I really do push the service where patrons can get their own books sent to them. But eventually, I'm sure we will. For our deposit collection, I actually stole one of the binders. We keep them in lovely binders at the front desk, and we sort them by genre. This is our romance, because people browse by genre. They don't. It's Westerns, romance, and nonfiction. And then we just have them barcoded, and we have a little tag in so that people can put them back easily after patrons borrow them, but also so we can rearrange them when we get new books in the deposit collection. And it's short and simple. I will say, if you're training a new staff, especially on the ILL account, and they're really curious about Braille, let them know not to order too many Braille books to see what they look like, because one Nora Roberts is about 8 books that are this big. So just
so it probably comes in what, 2 or 3 boxes?
Yeah, it's 2 or 3 boxes per book. So yeah, I'm not going to name names, and just make sure you let them know that Braille books are actually huge, and you don't need to order them for fun.
Good point.
Yeah.
So at Winnipeg Public Library, we do use the ILL account, and we have the deposit collection. The deposit collection, we look at it as almost like it's part of our collection. So we catalog it and process it just as we would any other item that's going to circulate in the library. So, after I've placed the requests for the deposit collection, about a week later, these boxes arrive, and the MARC records are sent to me. I forward them on to our catalogers who upload the records. They tweak them a little bit. And our discs are packaged in DVD cases with liners and barcodes and everything, and they circulate like any other library item, and they're on the shelf. And I have yellow liners for all of the English collection and blue liners for all of the French collection to make the distinction. So that's one collection, and I try to sort of order things that have that would appeal to a wide range of customers, a lot of bestsellers and award-winning titles. And then the ILL account, we use that more for, you know, if someone has a very unique request or unique tastes, we order books from the ILL account because there are things that we're not going to include in our collection that, you know, may go out once to that person and wouldn't circulate again. And so that's how we use that collection. And then when we're done with our deposit books, usually they're withdrawn because they're damaged. I send them back to CELA, and I guess you guys can dispose of them however you dispose of them. But because they are not ours, I do send them back to CELA.
And we do request, we do request that they be sent back. Basically, we recycle them. We want to make sure that the CDs are destroyed just because they are made under the copyright exception. And you don't want someone without a print disability to read the books. Any questions about deposits or ILLs? Okay. So now we're really down to the wire, and we're down to our last question. So I'm jumping right in. So what piece of advice would you give to a library who is new to CELA? So basically, in other words, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently if you were to start new?
I think the only advice I really have to give is don't be afraid to ask for help. It's especially when it comes to serving patrons with print disabilities. It's talked about like it's this whole shrouded in mystery how people can do it. So it's not really a topic that's been talked about a lot until recently. So you're not alone in not knowing the answers, but I've always found CELA to have a very quick response time, and also other librarians to be a great resource if you just have a general question. So don't be afraid to reach out to your network and ask for help if you're struggling, whether it's with marketing or even cataloging them, whatever.
And I would just say, I think the thing that we find is the hardest for customers is using technology. And so it's important to familiarize yourself, like to just spend time getting your hands on as much of whatever your customers have as possible so that you know what they're struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
I often have to go, like, if customers are using direct to player and they're using it on a tablet, I have to remind myself how it works. Like, I have to find a tablet in the library somewhere and like figure out how to get into it and unlock it and install the app and set up the account again. Like, it's, yeah.
I don't know if it's just you, but every time I have to do that for a patron, my Wi-Fi is also down. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, well, actually our Wi-Fi has been pretty, it has been, yes. Not recently, but yes, in the past.
Great. Well, I think those are all very good words of wisdom in terms of getting CELA off started. So I'll wrap things up and thank everyone. Well, thank our speakers especially for sharing their experiences with CELA. And I'm so grateful you were able to come and tell others about it. The session is recorded, so hopefully we'll get some other libraries who couldn't attend watching. So just some final reminders. We do send out a newsletter to libraries. It's called Open Book for Libraries, and we strongly encourage you to read it. That's where we'll promote any service announcements that are coming up, new titles. So we try and put our important service announcements in there. We also occasionally send individual emails to libraries. So you should all be on the lists to receive those. So Open Book will be going out next week. I also encourage you to follow us on social media. We have Twitter and Facebook accounts as well. And also let us know what's happening at CELA. It's important for us to hear what you're doing in your libraries. Sometimes we ask you if we can share your stories either on our site or in our funding reports as well. Because when we hear about the service, then we're able to tell other libraries when they call us and ask questions, and it just helps us improve our services for everybody. So I think that's it. I'm going to wish all of you, you are still a good morning for me. It's an afternoon. I'm here in Toronto. So, and thank you very much for attending, and a thank you especially to Jen, Paula, and Carolyn. It's great.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.